This video provides an introduction how to analyze the quality of plasma samples with the help of the MXP Quality Control Plasma software that is provided by Metanomics Health. Before we can start, we need a folder under User and your user account, which is called QC Assay. This folder has to be created by you, and it's mandatory that you name it QC Assay because the software will be looking for such a folder. Once we open this folder, we see three actual folders that are of importance to us. The first one is the QC Assay Actual, under which the software is located. So you can start the QC Assay software by simply clicking on the exe item. Next folder are our test dataset folders. And if I open one of them, I see immediately one configuration file. Now this configuration file here includes the name of your customer, a customer number if there is such a thing, and the customer address. Once you're all set, putting in your customer name, you can save this file and continue opening the test dataset. Within this test dataset, you find our actual dataset as a TXT file and another configuration file. This configuration file then is used for calling the project or giving this project a certain name. In this case, version 2.0 test version, test dataset, and to tell the software which columns to import into the analysis. So the software is looking for a sample ID column, for an analyte ID column, and a concentration column. However, if they are called differently in your dataset, you just have to tell the software to use sample underscore ID, for example, instead of sample ID to import these required columns. Now once you're set and you saved this file, you can also close it and then open the software. Which should not take too long to open. And what you can see on the software once it is opened is that it contains actual three windows, which I will explain in a second. So, okay, these are the three windows that I told you about. And what you can see immediately is in this, first of all, input file window, you see the two datasets that are in our test client 1 and test client 2 folder. And what you can see is that the import of the first assay or of the first dataset failed in this case, whereas the second test dataset was successfully imported. Which brings us to the second window down here, which actually tells you what the software is doing and also tells you details about the datasets that you provided. So for example, if I click on the failed dataset and I click on Analyzer Details, you see that it found several issues with this dataset. For example, the column headers were wrongly specified and hence the software could not import them correctly. If I then click on the successfully imported test dataset, you see that no problems were found with this file. The third window over here just gives you an overview over your runs that you processed already, the total number of samples that were processed, and your available licenses. Furthermore, you have a little information window over here, which tells you particularly what you can do. So for example, if I click on the failed dataset again, it tells me that no valid reports are selected, and which means I cannot even click the accept button because it is grayed out here. The only thing I can do is decline, which means that this dataset vanishes from this import window. However, it is not lost completely, but simply stored under a different folder, which is called declined in its original folder. So in contrast, if I click on the file that was successfully imported, the information window tells me that I selected one file, and if I click on the accept button, I will use rough 230 licenses of my over 9,000 licenses available. Now I click the Accept button and it will start generating the report and the results, which you can see over here in the state generating. So now you see that the dataset has vanished from the import file, but instead we can click on the builder log and we can see that now my licenses have been used up. Now I don't have over 9,000 licenses, but rough 9,000 licenses available anymore. And it created an output folder under test dataset out. And I can click on this link to directly access this folder, or rather the zip archive that was created. So once I extract this archive, I have a PDF report which gives me an overview over the results of this quality check. Then I have an Excel file which contains all the single samples and their quality assessment and the original test data file that I put into the software initially. Now if I click on the quality report, we see on the cover sheet that in here you see the project name that you specified with the second configuration file, and you see the client name that you specified with the first configuration file. So after that, we have an overview over all the results of our 232 samples. And of these samples, 201 were correctly identified as being EDTA plasma, whereas 24 samples were identified as citrate plasma and 7 were identified as serum. Furthermore, this report shows you the quality assessment for each of the EDTA plasma samples, meaning that 161 were of good quality in the blood processing control and rough 200 were of high quality in the plasma processing control. For the citrate plasma and serum samples, of course, no results were available because this algorithm is specifically for EDTA plasma. Now, if we scroll down, we see a section where all the single samples are shown to you with their result for the quality control. So all the serum samples, of course, will not yield any results in either the MXP blood processing control, the plasma processing control score, or the overall quality score. In contrast, if we have EDTA plasma identified, we know that it is of high quality in the blood processing control and of high quality in the plasma processing control. It will also have an overall good quality. However, if a sample is of low quality in either of the two, the overall score cannot be a good one and will always be a low quality score. Now, if we scroll down further through all of the samples, we have a second overview picture, which is this balloon plot, which shows you where the samples were located. And what you can see is that the majority of samples is above the threshold for high quality and is colored in green over here. You have another set of samples over here that has good quality score in the plasma processing, but had very poor performing blood processing score, meaning that it is of poor quality and there were some issues connected with the blood processing. Now, the second file that was generated was the quality report as an Excel file. If I open this file, we will see that it contains two sheets. So the first data sheet here is an overview again, so you know this picture already. We have 201 samples that were identified as EDTA plasma with an overview of how many samples were of high, low or medium quality, and we have a further 24 samples that do not yield any results because they were identified as citrate plasma, and we have 7 samples that were identified as being serum, and of course they also do not yield any results. In the second data sheet here, again, you have all the different results for your individual samples with the blood processing score, the plasma processing score, and the overall quality score. Okay, now with this, you should be able to assess the quality of your samples. And if you have any questions, you can always go to the manual to try to find out your frequently asked questions, so to say, or you can always come back to Metanomics Health and ask for assistance.